Hello everyone, Scorm here and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do something a little different. We're not going to be recording any gameplay today. Not for this video. Well, we're going to watch some gameplay. And, to that point, I wanted to look over CynicAlex's latest video in which he discusses all defense down and how it functions in relation to the striker and the relationship that they have with the main team. He discusses this, and I wanted to kind of, distinguish whether or not he knows what he's talking about or if he's misleading on any information. And from what I've seen of the video, I think he's pretty spot on, but I do think there are some things that need to be discussed. And let's dive right in and see what CynicAlex has to say.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's CynicAlex, and today I want to talk about all defense down, World Boss Ultimate, the striker interaction, and why the filling up the cup sort of works, but not really, and it's still dead in the way that it used to be. So
I want to touch on what he just said there, how all defense down sort of works, but not really. I disagree. It either works or it doesn't. The thing is with all defense down and the fill the cup method now is that it has a more strict limitation than it did before. When you could before apply it in every attack throughout the entirety of the fight, now you kind of have a timer that you have to be aware of when you're fighting. You're kind of racing that timer, and if you don't beat that timer and you don't keep it in mind, then yes, the all defense down just kind of stops working about 90 seconds or so into fight. And we're going to expand more on this later. I do believe that he brings it up, but to say that it works but then also doesn't work, that is not the case. It works. You just have to learn how it works.
So the filling up the cup method, just for those of you that don't remember, is where you would use Weapon Hex as a striker because her all defense down cap is minus 100%, stacks up to. The cup is the stacks up to part. So her cup stacks up to minus 100, which is the highest in the game. Once you get to minus 100 and any higher, the damage is just nuts because the boss basically has zero defense, so you're slapping them around, which enabled characters like Wolverine, Mr. Fantastic, and others to do incredibly high stages of World Boss. It allowed characters like Hulkling to do stage 50, Ebony Maw, and just completely ridiculous stuff like that. So the filling up the cup thing is dead in the way that we understood it, because
holy shit, I think these headphones are actually picking up my breathing. I wouldn't be surprised if they start picking up my heartbeat. I don't understand how they could be so sensitive to, every amount of sound. But what he said there is pretty spot on. I would say it's 100% spot on. The way all defense down functioned before, it allowed heroes that, would not be able to perform at a high level without it to perform at a high level with it, such as what he said, Wolverine, Mr. Fantastic. People had Mr. Fantastic clearing Cold Obsidian in the 80s and 90s prior to the update, and he can't do that anymore. So yeah, the fill the cup method with pretty much deals entirely with Weapon Hex. Yes, there are other all defense down strikers in the game, but when you mention fill the cup method, this applies almost exclusively to Weapon Hex and her relation to other characters in the game that have native all defense down, in which they can allow her to attack first, and then they attack and they fill the cup up to her 100% because she cannot fill up the all defense down to 100% by herself. I think the furthest she can fill up all defense down by herself is probably around 40 to 60%. Okay, so let's get right back into it, see what else he has to say.
Thing is dead in the way that we understood it, because as you will see when you go into a high level world boss, now obviously I can't vouch for a low level world boss. It may work. I'm not exactly sure how the interaction works between your level, your conqueror level, and your resistance level. You can see there the recommended resistance is 6,800 or 680, but my current resistance is only 403. But we're going to go in with this team here. We can actually
So the team he's about to use is going to include Captain America Hydra uniform. This seems to me like he's using his old method of using weapon hex on the team to not have a penalty on the all defense down, and instead applying that to Captain America. And then he's also going to use weapon hex as a striker so that he can assure at least one time a day that he can get 100% all defense down regularly. Except, using this method is going to be kind of confusing because you're still kind of racing the clock as to how far you can push the all defense down. Because yes, Captain America's all defense down is going to apply regularly, but at some point, Weapon Hex's all defense down is going to stop. So it's going to be interesting seeing how he pieces this puzzle together. Let's see.
Take away Mystique and put in Shuri here. And then we are going to use the 30%, the minus 10% up to 30% all defense down on Captain America's fourth skill. And we're going to use Weapon Hex as a striker. And as you will see at the very beginning of the fight, it works. It definitely does work. But as the fight progresses, it basically just falls off a cliff. And this is not.
And that's kind of true. That's kind of in line with what I was saying earlier, in that you're racing a clock. But there's also more to it than he's saying. He says at the beginning of the fight it works, and then it stops working at the one application. That's not quite true. How it works is that you apply it in the beginning, and you get the burst, and you have one of two things you can do after, especially for these high stages like 80 and 70 or whatever. You can wait for Weapon Hex to attack, and then go right into your attack that has all defense down, and that'll give you a second application. Or you can do the co-op method. You can apply it the first time without using the co-op button. So you go in, do your first rotation, and get the all defense down. You get the spike. Then second time around, on your second rotation, you can use the co-op button to assure that you get the all defense down application. Because if you continue attacking and Weapon Hex is just constantly coming out, she's constantly expediting the process in which they become resistant to her all defense down. So as you continue attacking and you continue spamming attacks and rotations, you're actually hurting yourself with the all defense down application process. So that's why when you go into these high stage world bosses, and when you watch my videos with Iron Man, it's always focused on getting as much power as possible on the very first rotation. And most of the time that means that I'm going to use the co-op button at the beginning of the fight and hit them as hard as possible. And then the second time around, you either want to have perfect timing, or you kind of just want to bide time until the co-op button comes back. That's why the command strikers like Odin and Star-Lord and guys like that for high-level world boss become more integral to the whole formula as you try to solve the all defense down puzzle. And I feel like he has I don't want to say a limited understanding, but I feel like he hasn't experimented enough with that aspect of applying all defense down. All right, so he's about to start the gameplay. Let's see how this plays out for him. I'm pretty sure he's going to apply it one time, and then he's just going to drop the ball the rest of the time. It's just a beginner's error.
This is not accidental. This is intentional. This is the resistance system. So let's take a look here. We're going to call her in, and then we're going to use our fourth skill. There we go, and then we're going to. Okay, that didn't really work. All right, let's try this again.
Yeah, he's having limited success right away because it's twofold. He's probably not timing his rotation correctly, and he's not lining up his attacks with Weapon Hex. I noticed he used the co-op button, but I didn't really determine or distinguish if he used the co-op button correctly. One reason is because I don't use Hydra cap a lot. Most of the time I'm using in-game cap, so I would be better educated to comment on an in-game cap rotation than I would a Hydra cap rotation. But let's continue.
Again, we're going to use our fourth skill after she does her fifth. And you can see there's a big burst in damage. Well, it's not quite a big burst in damage.
Definitely a big burst.
Okay, let's try this again. It didn't really work out right away. Maybe calling her in with the co-op skill was not ideal. It's very
Isn't that ironic? It actually is ideal to call her in with the co-op skill. Except when you do that, you have to have your rotation timing correct, because she's going to come in at the exact moment that you do the co-op skill. So you have to have your rotation in line with her all defense down application. So there's a measure of actual skill that it takes to pull this off. I mean, watch any of my videos. I don't just do low level world bosses. I do 50, 60, 70, 75. I'm working towards 80 on multiple bosses right now, and my methods are still working. So it seems to be that it's the player here and not the method itself.
I think the all defense down system is a lot more annoying now. I think it's much less reliable. I think just if you don't have all defense down on a character, you can bring in one striker. I think it's just much simpler to understand it that way than it is to try and finagle with these strikers. But anyways, we're going to attack her normally with Captain America, and then we're going to apply our there we go. See, there we go. So you see a big burst in damage, and you're like, wow, CynicAlex, I thought the all defense down thing didn't work.
Wow, CynicAlex, you got one big burst of damage on your very first rotation. You actually did it right, and you didn't use the co-op button. So now what you can do, since you didn't use the co-op button, you can come back around to resetting your rotation and using the co-op button on your next rotation and get another application of all defense down. But I bet you're not going to do that, are you, CynicAlex?
Well, look at that. You did a bar of damage. I did. Now let's see what happens if we continue this process. So we're going to continue attacking her. We're gonna actually wait a little bit longer here. We're going to prompt her to come out again. There she is again. No, she didn't apply her. What is that? Reality? Oh, it's the reality manipulation. All right, we're going to wait.
Shocker. Shocker that he just went ahead and just started spamming rotations and even said, oh, we're going to wait. We're going to wait a little bit. Like, I don't hate his take. I think that he's kind of accurate on some of it, but it's one thing to say something, it's another thing to execute it. And I feel like he's failing to execute right now.
Okay, there she is. We're going to use our fourth skill. And you can see there's a bit of a burst there, but the burst is obviously less so than it was before, right? We're going to let her come out again. Okay, we're going to use our fourth skill. And now you can see it kind of just doesn't work anymore. And you're like, what's going on? What's wrong?
I've already said what's going on. You've spammed so many attacks up to this point that Proxima's already immune to the all defense down. And that happens when you're not correctly timing rotations and being kind of more meticulous in your approach. When you're just spamming attacks and waiting for the all defense down to show up, this is what happens. You throw some command strikers in there, so you could do the command striker method and get a great application on your first all defense down push, and then don't use your character's all defense down skill. And you really you want to limit the amount of times that we're going to see weapon hex on the field until your next viable application process. And if you're not doing that and weapon hex is just always appearing, then the boss is just going to become immune that much quicker. Okay, so after looking over the previous take, I may have been a little aggressive. Maybe I've been a little unfair to CynicAlex there, because I noticed that he wasn't using any supports. I kind of didn't notice that at first. Obviously with supports, proper supports, the damage is going to be a lot more. So perhaps he was performing a little bit better than I gave him credit for. He still wasn't using the co-op button, and I do find some fault with that, because if he's going to learn how to use all defense down and apply it in higher stage world bosses, he needs to learn how to use the co-op button. So I will backtrack a little bit there and give him a little bit more credit for his run there with no support. So, I take responsibility for that bad take. Okay, before we move on, let's see how the rest of this run goes. Let's see if he has anything to say that I could consider a good take.
You'll never get enough resistance for the higher stages. Eventually your conqueror level will be outdone by the resistance. So you can see
now that right there is a really good point that he makes. At some point, your resistance is going to hit what could be considered a hard cap, because your conquer level is only going to go so high, because at some point it's going to get very difficult to build up your conquer level if you're not doing world bosses that are above that conquer level, right? So if you get to 89 and your conquer level is kind of caught up with you, if you're not clearing stages that are above 89 or so, your conquer level is going to go up very, very incrementally, very slowly, and it will become near impossible for your resist to match up to where you are currently in the world boss. So that's a really good point he made there, and I will give him full credit for that.
Here I still have the ability to fill the cup, right? We're still in it, and I think we can actually just kill her. But again, this is stage 60, right? Once you go high enough, once your resistance is lower, once you don't have the recommended amount of resistance, it will no longer work for you. So
it's not that it will no longer work for you. It's just that clock, that internal clock in which you can apply all defense down, will become much more noticeable. It will be much more heavy on your gameplay than it is on 60. So, from one bad take to one questionable take, that is the art of CynicAlex. Excuse me, one good take to one questionable take. I mean, yeah, he had a bad take earlier with the co-op button, but his take that he just had about the conquer level outpacing your resist level, yes, that is a very good take and a very intelligent point.
But this is definitely true, and so that's why you can see once you start getting into the recommended resistance, you start to encounter problems. So I do take a little bit of issue with people out there, putting out videos or putting out content or putting out this idea that you can still fill the cup. Now you can still fill the cup in the first.
I feel like that's an attack on me. Maybe not so much an attack, because believe me, trust me, CynicAlex knows I exist. We had an argument on his Twitch channel. I don't know how long ago it was. Maybe a few weeks. And he knows who I am. So he definitely could be kind of nodding to me. He thinks that I'm misleading the Marvel Future Fight community and getting them to believe that the all defense down fill the cut method works, but I'm not misleading anybody. I have so many videos and I stream live on Twitch in which I teach people that you can repeat this over and over and over again with the same result, that it's not a fluke, it's a science, it's something you have to learn, it's something you have to practice. I'm not misleading anybody. The all defense down fill the cut method works. That's all there is to it, That's all I have to say about that.
Maybe 30 seconds of the fight at very high levels, stage 60, 70, 80. But if you don't kill the boss within a very short amount of time, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like I said, you want to focus on, in the start of the fight, hitting them as hard as you can and kind of doing so much damage to the boss in the beginning that you're outpacing the internal clock. That's why with Iron Man especially, a lot of the focus is on absolute annihilation of the boss within 30 seconds. Your internal clock is more closer to 90 seconds than it is 30 seconds. But yeah, the take is still the same. You do a lot of damage in the beginning, and then you do a lot of damage to follow up that initial rotation. And once you do that, then you should be to a point where, with the world boss, that you've almost cleared it. So you want to constantly push the envelope with perfect rotations and how they are executed, and the result. The result is what matters. So if you get 5 bars on one rotation and the next time you do it you get 7 bars, you want to get to a point where you perfect your first rotation to get the 7 bars and not the 5 bars, so that you're outpacing that internal clock.
As the fight progresses, the all defense down just won't apply anymore. It just won't work in that same way. However, if you kill the boss really quickly, it does work. Yes, it does.
Yes, thank you, CynicAlex. Give Iron Man his credit. Give characters like that get the job done very quickly their credit, because, like I said, if you outpace the clock is not an issue. So the name of the game is, with this method, you want to deal that damage, as effectively and as efficiently and as often as you can. You don't want it to be a fluke,
because the resistance takes time. It's like a tolerance effect, right? The first time you hit the boss, they feel it, but the second time, third time, they build up a resistance. That's what resistance is. It's building up some sort of immunity or some sort of defense to something that's attacking you. I'm Canadian, so I have a resistance to the cold. I also have a resistance to not saying sorry, and I also have a resistance to maple syrup. So we are going to be filling the cup today in a clip that I was blown away when I first saw it, and
So he gets a clip sent to him from someone not named me that he's blown away by, but I sent him a clip and he fights me tooth and nail about it. So, it is what it is.
I did it. I was able to duplicate it on stream with great fanfare. It was amazing to watch. And this clip,
and I feel like it has more to do with the fact that the character I'm using the method with is not someone that CynicAlex agrees with. But if you give him someone that he likes, or that he considers someone that the community can get behind, that's easy to relate to, then yeah, I guess this is the perfect storm to get CynicAlex attention.
This idea, which will be in this clip, doesn't come from me. It's not my idea, so I have to give full credit to Whoville Thug. If you guys know who Whoville Thug is, you will see them on some of the leaderboards for some of the bosses. And if you scroll there, speak of the devil and they shall appear. There you go, Whoville Thug with the Namor combo there, number 2. Now you can see there. Look at that goofy team. I'm ranked 17 right now. I was goofing around. Well, I wasn't goofing around. I was copying Whoville Thug, and I got 17th on Thanos. And my highest stage is stage 57, which is not even that high. But we're going to go over now to stage 57, and or stage 58, and you're going to see that my resistance is lower than the recommended resistance. So, first of all, against Thanos...
But his valor is also very high. They're both kind of working together. Resist and valor work together symbiotically. So... if your resist is lower than the recommended and you have higher valor, then you can still perform. These all defense down spikes. That's not something he mentions. He just kind of goes on about resist being the only thing that matters. Well, he's going to see very soon that there's a lot more to it than that.
All defense down in the second phase of the fight doesn't work. So Thanos, the resistance doesn't even really matter, because if you don't one-shot Thanos and you're using all defense down, once you get him down to 11 bars, it's just not going to work at all. However,
he is correct. If you don't one-shot Thanos on these stage 50s and you have to fight him the rest of the way, it's probably going to take all of your time, regardless of if you're using Namor or Cable or Professor X or whoever. That's why the main priority against 50 Thanos is to just bypass all of that by annihilating him at the very beginning phase of the fight. So there's only a couple of characters in the game that can do that, and one of them is Sharon Rogers, and the other one is CynicAlex's, nemesis, Iron Man.
We're going to use this team here. This is a very bizarre team, but shout out to Whoville Thug. And we are going to essentially fill the cup using Captain America as a support sort of striker, on the team as a character. Now, you can't use Captain America as a striker the way that we used to use it. The striker combo doesn't work anymore. But we're going to use him. We're going to use Captain America on the team with Sharon Rogers, and I'm using Sharon Rogers' leadership because I don't want to switch.
A thing to note here is that he is using Doctor Strange, which will help to keep Thanos in place for the full duration of the optimal rotation that he's planning on using. So, with Iron Man, you don't have to worry about using Doctor Strange because Iron Man has his own time freeze. So that's why you'll see in my videos that I don't use Doctor Strange. However, using Doctor Strange with other characters, that's not a bad idea. I practiced that that method earlier with Cable, and I couldn't necessarily replicate a one-shot. So it may be something I need more practice with myself.
You can use other characters besides White Fox, but it does change around the team-up skill. And the team-up skill is going to be important because you're going to have to insta-cancel the team-up skill into the third skill. You'll see the combo in a second. But the reason why...
Another very good point that he's going to learn the hard way is very important to performing this, is those instant cancels, or in some cases, frame-perfect cancels. And it's these frame-perfect cancels that determine the outcome of the fight. If you time it correctly or you time it perfectly, there can be a big separation in the damage output. So you can time it well and get one burst of damage that does any amount of bars, and then you can time it perfectly and get a whole different result. And that's what you have to learn when you're doing this.
This is important is because of Captain America Generational Justice, Sharon actually does her fourth skill. You don't want her to do that, but anywho. So if you did that, if you remove that and you went to Coulson, then she actually does a different one, or she only does the fourth one. So anyways, we're gonna stick with White Fox here. White Fox also gives you, of course, 55% increased damage against villains, and White Fox also gives you 10% all attack or 15% all attack. So White Fox is great here, but we don't want to use White Fox's leadership. We don't want to use the debuff for Captain America's all defense down. We're not doing any of that stuff. We're not switching from Captain America to Sharon Rogers. This is a one-shot. And we're going to be using just Doctor Strange and Weapon Hex. And we're going to be using Weapon Hex to set that 100% all defense down. And then Captain America is going to come in and fill it up right away. And Doctor Strange is going to time freeze Thanos so that he doesn't go into his next phase. The important thing here is time freeze. You can possibly use Professor X or someone else, but it's a little bit tricky. So you wait here at the beginning, and you insta-cancel.
A little bit tricky. That is the CynicAlex curse when it comes to stuff like this. A little bit tricky means requires more skill. And he would actually find better results if he added another CC striker that wasn't time freeze, because it's when you repeat the same debuff in your strikers that the boss becomes immune to it. But if you do like a paralyze, and you do a time freeze, and you do a mind control, those are all three separate debuffs, and they won't suffer a penalty at the start of the fight. So you can chain CC with different forms of debuff, and he doesn't do that here. So
4 into 3, then you go 5,
here's
and
his
then you
result.
go 4. Now, I didn't get it right. I didn't do it quite fast enough. But look at how much damage you did. And you've seen this before. You've seen these 8-second clear videos. You can see them with Sharon Rogers. You can see them with Iron Man as well. The Iron Man combo is a little bit more complicated. You need Nick Fury and possibly Coulson. You set that.
And that is another nod to players like me and Forgo Nation. Except, Forgo's video was a stage 49 Iron Man. I have done videos of stage 50, 51, 52, 53. Most of those are on my Twitch channel, but still there's videos out there of me doing these rotations or these clears at a higher stage than 49. And he is right in saying that the Iron Man rotation is more difficult because it requires frame perfect timing. However, I would argue for what he's trying to accomplish here and how it turns out that the Sharon Rogers rotation that he's going for the one shot may also be frame perfect, and that might be why he doesn't get the one shot as much as he wants it. And if you've seen the video, you know the rest of this. He only gets the rotation once during a live stream. He kind of shows that clip. I don't want to go through all of the failed attempts that he has here, but we'll go through a couple of them.
And Nick Fury's bubble, and this can work with Nick Fury too. I'm not saying that
the story is pretty much the same, that he's simply not getting the perfect timing. He's getting correct timing, but he's not getting perfect timing, and that's why the result always seems to be the same for him. And then when he does it once, he's blown away. So, and that'll lead you to think that, oh, maybe it's a fluke, and it's not a fluke. It's just timing.
Don't work with Nick Fury. But it's hilarious because this team is actually much cheaper. You don't need any paywall characters. The only one you need that's possibly expensive is
He says you don't need any paywall characters, except he has White Fox, who is kind of paywall. You can do crystals, but it's gonna take at least 2 months? 2 months to get her to tier 2? if not longer. And then you have, oh, I don't know, Weapon Hex at the top of the screen. Definitely not a paywall character, CynicAlex. Definitely. But yeah, overall, this setup is a bit cheaper than the Iron Man setup, because I think Sharon Rogers can probably do this with a CTB of energy, whereas Iron Man needs rage.
Of course, White Fox. But you wait for the beam, and then you 4 cancel into 3 instantly, and then you sit on the 5 for a second. We were a little bit... It definitely does take, multiple attempts here.
So I don't want to go through all of his failed attempts. I want to kind of find the video where he does it correctly. And because this video is already going on pretty long. So we're going to find the clip where he does it correctly. And we're going to end the video there, you know?
But, yeah. But I think that's unrealistic, Chauncey.
Here's the clip.
They can update 2 or 3 game modes. We'd be lucky if they upgraded 2 or 3 game modes.
And that, my friends, is not a fluke. You know, he gets super shocked by it, and it's cool to see him pop off like that, but he doesn't replicate that at all throughout the rest of the video because he doesn't get the timing right. So if you want to learn how to do that with Sharon Rogers, or you want to learn how to do one-shots with Iron Man, watch my videos. If you want to learn how to do that with Sharon Rogers, watch that clip over and over and over again until you get the exact timing down that he used to pull that off. It's not a fluke, guys. And with that said, I'm going to end the video here. I hope that this was insightful for you all that may be interested or want to learn how to use these methods to further your crusade through the World Boss Gauntlet. And thank you for watching. I appreciate all of the support. I apologize that the video is a little bit long. I wanted to be as educational and insightful as I could. And if you like my content, or you like content like this, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and stay safe out there. You know, the coronavirus stuff is kind of, you know, dying down, so, you know, continue to stay safe, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.